Okay, so hi guys, Matt Rhodes here, and I'm delighted to say I've got not one but two star guests here. I've got Dada 5000 and Mike Goldberg. How you doing, guys?
I'm good. Dada, you good?
I'm great. I'm great. Ready to rock and roll.
Okay, nice to hear. Well, this is pretty cool because, as everybody knows who watches my channel, I work in two sort of niche sports, strongman and arm wrestling, that have really exploded. And now we're talking about another sport that is doing exactly the same, which is bare-knuckle boxing, which is starting to go mainstream with BYB Extreme. So obviously, Dada, you founded this quite some time ago. So could you just tell us, for the guys that are not familiar with you, a bit of your history and the background of BYB Extreme?
Wow, awesome. Listen, the history in the background, is simple. I played an innovative role in this, right? So when you talk about creating, we didn't create anything. But what we did was in the innovation department, we dressed it up, right? We made it more, you know, interesting, so we altered its appearance and we reintroduced it to society, and it just caught on. This was started inside of the backyard, and I seen the vision. I seen it already here. That's why I stayed the course of it, never wavered, to the point that it was like, once I started getting the calls from the big guys, because in the initial beginning, I said, okay, we're going to put these events on, and social media was definitely not where it is today. So it was simple, it was like, we're going to put these events on, and we're going to offer it to the people for 99 cents. And I got one call from ESPN, a reporter, and that just changed everything. And from there, we started getting more calls and more calls, and, just skyrocketed into this phenomenon called BYB Extreme.
And looking at the background of this, obviously, on sort of first look, it looks pretty violent sport, but the background to this is actually that you were doing this in the early days before this came to TV as a way for guys to settle disputes without extreme violence like guns and knives and things like that. That's correct?
100%. A knot on the head today, it'll heal tomorrow, right? So you had situations that definitely could have escalated, right? To the point that you see somebody at a gas station and you just ride by with a gun and just take pop shots at them, right? So we said, hey, listen, this is what we expect of you. This is what you are to expect of me. You guys go back there and we'll settle it. I'm the curator, what I'm saying? I'm the referee. I wore so many different hats. And a lot of people said a lot of different things, but this was an event that brought out, massive amounts of individuals. Everybody came together and everybody had a joyous and glorious time during the backyard. It was a nice time to be a part of something like this. People have heard about it, but a lot of people, they couldn't believe that it was actually going on. So I often say, we reinvented the way that individuals look at extreme reality. We got corporate America to trade in their suits and ties for baseball hats and tennis shoes because they didn't believe that it was going on. But when they came back and they seen it, it was game on.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think all combat sports, even if we just talk about boxing or MMA, initially all these sports look like kind of violence. And then when you understand the backstory and the fact that it allows people that otherwise probably been in huge trouble on the streets to actually express themselves in a way that's actually fair and non-violent because it's consenting adults doing it. It's actually a great thing, isn't it?
100%. You got to keep one thing in mind. We created avenues and lanes for these individuals that society deemed at one point, hey, you're a loser. Hey, you never amount to anything. A lot of individuals have said, hey, listen, my school teacher said, that I would never amount to anything. Well, guess what? You're going to prove them wrong. What you did in the past, it doesn't even matter. So what we did was we gave them an opportunity. I could tell you what they had and I could tell you what they didn't have. They didn't have a high school diploma. They didn't have a trade. They didn't have, crafty skills that they could go out, and make an honest buck because they already screwed themselves up. But what they do have, they got 2 strikes. We don't want them to get that third. They have two hands. They have a will. They have a desire. And I'd rather these guys had been in my backyard, performing in the front of agents and managers and promoters than to be waiting inside of your backyard to tie you up and rob your house when you get home, from work. I really don't feel like the backyard has received the credit that it deserves. A lot of individuals, have gotten an opportunity to go to that next level on a professional, stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming to you, Mike, I think many of us know you as the voice of combat sports. So it's brilliant now to see you heavily involved with this, because everybody knows where you are is a serious sport, and where you are is sports that seem to always go on a great trajectory upwards as well. Just for people that don't know all of your background, can you just tell us your kind of history in combat sports and how it's led you to this?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I think, Matt, it's only fair to take the big picture of what Dada just said and surround it also with history. And that is the fact that you have many martial arts back in Asia that go back centuries. But the oldest form of combat sports with the hands is bare-knuckle boxing, back to John E. Sullivan. And so you have bare-knuckle boxing now not invented, but rejuvenated and reinvigorated by the storylines of my good friend and part of our family, my brother in arms, Dada 5000, a unique combat surface in the Trigon. And to a certain degree, what Dada was doing was saying, hey, if you two have a problem, meet after school in the parking lot and get it out and have it done. So something else doesn't happen that could really, really affect your life negatively. And so that's what Dada put together. And now they have come together to make it a great product. I'm a hockey player. I'm a lifelong hockey player. My dentist made a lot of money off of me because I took a couple cross checks in the mouth. In fact, it was kind of funny because we had a great show at Miramar about a week ago, Matt. And then the next day, Mike Vasquez, Dada, myself, our great Hall of Fame matchmaker, Mel Valenzuela, Don Povia, we all went to the NHL All-Star game. And even though it was the All-Star game 3-on-3, Matt, I was able to kind of give, right, Dada? I was giving you a little hockey lesson, even though it wasn't real hockey. But I showed Dada a picture of me without my chiclets. And, Dada loves me already, but I think that was another little bit of love. What happened to me, Matt, was in the mid-'90s, I had a producer named Bruce Connell. And if anybody ever watched a UFC over the years, Tonight Show, produced by Bruce Connell, directed by Anthony Pasquale Giordano, and so on. So Brucey was one of the main producers at ESPN when I was doing hockey on ESPN, being a hockey guy, broadcasting the NHL. Bruce Beck was the voice of the UFC prior to that. He got a full-time job, Matt, so he couldn't freelance. So Brucey, may he rest in peace, before he's in Japan, he got to take a jiu-jitsu class. I heard gig in Japan, and I was like, boom. I was on the plane, and then I was trying to find somewhere that it said bullet train or Shinkansen, because that's what I had to take from Narita to Shin Yokohama. There's not a lot of English in Narita. So I did make it, but that's how I transitioned into combat sports. And at that time, it was the dark days of mixed martial arts. It was the dark days of the UFC. It was the time in which the late, great Senator John McCain said, got human cockfighting here. And Matt, he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong back then, because when the UFC first came to life, it was like, Matt, you're a boxer and I'm a wrestler. It's not Matt against Goldie. It's you boxer, me wrestler. Which discipline is the more dominant discipline? Mm-hmm. And over the years, it developed into mixed martial arts. So it's interesting, everything you and Dada just talked about, violence, acceptance. I lived that journey with the sport of mixed martial arts. We educated the universe on the athlete and the competition and how hard they train, and that it wasn't just two guys going in there with no rules and anything goes. That wasn't the case, and it isn't the case inside the Trigon. These guys work full time and they train 3 times a day to be ready to compete. And so my ride in combat sports was a journey in which the UFC and MMA gained mainstream acceptance. And now what excites me the most, and Dada and I talk about it all the time, is I feel like I'm on that journey again, Matt. And if I'm honored and if I have the blessing to be able to go on another ride, by the way, we are going on this ride, and our next stop is Dubai, as you know, Matt, then that's exactly what I want to do. And I want to bring the passion, energy, and enthusiasm that I brought to MMA all those years to the sport of bare knuckle boxing. And when you have leaders like Mike Vasquez and Dada 5000 who have hearts of gold and truly consider everyone at BYB family, Matt, as you know, you want to do even better by them. You want to say, I'm not going to leave anything on the table. You got me. I'm in. Cut me. Blood brothers. We're here. And that's where we are right now with BYB Extreme. And from the time in which I came on, Dada 5 Dada, you know, I mean, from the time we met at the Miami-Dade County Fair to now, woof. And now it's going to elevate even more so, Matt. So that's my ride through combat sports last few years. Do a lot of glove boxing as well with my great partner, the Magic Man, Paulie Malignaggi, or as Shaquille O'Neal would say, Paulie Maggiano. But if Shaquille just knows your first name, it's all good. And that's where I am today. But I love combat sports. My favorite form of combat sports to train has been Muay Thai over the years. And so I really have always gravitated towards the striking part of it. So the Trigon and BYB Extreme is just a natural fit for my passions and my love of combat sports.
If you're enthusiasm, I don't know how it can fail, Mike. That's the thing.
Thank you.
And interesting. Go on.
Just to add in on something that Mike had just stated, just being a part of that evolution, to see where the UFC, has come from, is spectacular in itself. And it reminds me so much of the backyard, because they started out without gloves on, the weight classes wasn't where they are. So, it's like history repeats itself. And before the gloves were ever on, they were off. And I said this a few times. Everybody is literally a bare knuckle fighter. It doesn't matter if you're the heavyweight champion of the UFC, the heavyweight champion of boxing, jiu-jitsu, whatever. You have been inside of a fist fight at some point or time in your life. And you didn't have on no gloves. You had to do it bare knuckle. So that classifies you as a bare knuckle, fighter. And again, when you're working with great guys like someone who's as knowledgeable, who is as talented as the great Mike Goldberg, who's an industry insider in combat sports, then we have Paulie, then we have Claudia, we have the voice of Big Mo, which Mike, you even said he's going to be something special, and you're 100% right on that. And just look at the team that we have assembled. This thing can stand on its own in any era of combat sports. And this is going to be a wild ride, action-packed ride full of bare knuckle thrills and chills. And hope the world is wearing their seatbelts, because we're going from 0 to 60 like this.
Yeah, I always like to kind of research anything, and I was going through BYB Extreme, and I was seeing like the last event you mentioned, Shaq. I saw he was there. Yeah. In America.
He was not only there, but he was part of our commentary team.
With you, yeah. And
he jumped on the microphone. That's where the Paulie Maggiano came from, Matt.
Yeah. And I saw one of the top former WWE wrestling producers is working with you guys. So I realized like the ensemble, the team.
It's his birthday today too. The general.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's Nelson's birthday today. So I'm glad you brought him up.
But you really do have like the best of the best. So it's really a recipe, I think. And it shows that I don't think any of you guys would get involved with this unless you truly believed in it and the way it was run, which is always a great sign,
Very, very, very true. And when I first was invited down with the possibility of joining the team, Matt, that was Paulie's first show with BYB. And I had not met Paulie personally at that time. But to me, working with Joe Rogan all those years, and now Paulie is my powerful partner, They both have that renegade spirit, but they're also both great at what they do. And in my opinion, there isn't a better boxing analyst on the planet than Paulie Malignaggi. So when you put a Paulie Malignaggi in, and Al Bernstein had worked some shows for BYB prior to that, Matt, and then I'm blessed to come on. And then Claudia Trejos's history and her spot in the sport of boxing is Hall of Fame material as well. So Mike Vasquez, along with Dada, made some decisions that legitimacy also comes with the product that the people see at home. So humbly, if you can add me to a Paulie Malignaggi and then we bring a Claudia Trejos in, we're making a commitment and we're telling the world that this is okay. And I believe that we've benefited, Dada, from some of the stuff that people had to kind of get used to, Matt, in the UFC, the blood and you know, a head wound bleeds a ton. It's worse looking than it is oftentimes. I'm not saying it's not bad, but it's worse looking with the adrenaline and the blood in that. But the MMA world, we ate that pill. We swallowed that pill and we told the fans, it's okay. I believe that bare knuckle has at least that on our side. And when people understand that when flesh hits flesh, that's going to open up and they're going to be fine a few stitches later, people understand more that it's a skilled sport, one of honor and combat, and not a glorified, you know, a glorified tough man contest, because it's far from that.
Yeah, I wanted to hit on that point actually, because boxing is actually far more dangerous, I believe, because it's much more
no question,
because the guys are wearing gloves and therefore can take far more punishment without actually being KO'd. Whereas, as you just stated, bare knuckle boxing, it can look perhaps worse because cuts, blood, but it's actually far less concussive. I believe that's kind of medically correct, yeah?
No doubt about it. And as Dada knows, Shaquille asked that very question when we were on the air together the other day. Like, hey, guys, Mike, Paulie, I've been told this is safer. This is safer than boxing. This is, I would say it's equally as safe as MMA because those small gloves are small gloves. But this is what causes concussions. And boxing gloves are made to protect the fighter's hands, not their opponent's head.
Yeah.
And so that shaking of the brain and the fluid up there is what causes the long-term damage. Mm-hmm. And you can do more damage because your hands aren't breaking. Your hands are protected. You're in two casts. And that's what Paulie told Shaquille literally on the air. And of course it makes perfect sense. Yeah. You know, you'd rather get, bam, knocked out. You don't want to lose, but you'd rather be knocked out, be done, and be able to wake up and be with your family the next day than to have the after effects of concussions, and even worse in some boxers that we've seen over the years. And that doesn't make boxing bad. It's just a reality that gloves were designed to protect the fighter's hands, not the opponent's head.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And you know,
and Dada, you would agree, obviously.
100%. You know, when we was inside of the backyard, you know, and that's why I stopped reading a lot of the comments. It was like, oh, you know, because it had projected onto mainstream programs like National Geographic, so forth like that. So millions of people were seeing this. And it was like, you're taking, you know, boxing and MMA back 10 years. I was like, wow, that's not true. But just to piggyback off of what Goldie was saying, you know, 100% correct. You know, the gloves are designed to protect, you know, the fighter's hand, not the opponent's, you know, head. And just look at numbers in boxing, where you possibly got 700-800 punches thrown in a fight, not in a year, not over the course of a career, in one fight. That's a lot of times you're getting your bell, you know, your bell rung. And like he said also with MMA, you know, I think that boxing definitely is more dangerous than MMA and bare knuckle. MMA, you have multiple, you know, opportunities to get your guy out of there, you know, submissions, knockout, kicks, you know, so many different, you know, weaponries of your choice. And when it comes down to the bare knuckle, boxing, they call it, the sweet science. I look at bare knuckle as a gentleman's sport. Back in the days when they had the handlebar mustaches, and they
Yeah,
used to put
baby.
them up like that. So when you look at BYB, it's an old sport, with a twist of this new world tradition,
Mhm.
and I think that the sky's the limit, for it. As you see, you have individuals from all other sports, making their presence known in bare knuckle, and it's something to be said when you see people starting to gravitate towards it and catch on.
So you're the best place to answer this question. The main injuries, I guess, is to the hands then, yeah, during a fight. That's probably the biggest risk for a severe injury. Broken hands, yeah? Broken knuckles.
Without a doubt.
Def 100%.
Yeah.
I would say that an incorrect punch will end your night, and we've seen that. So they have to, you can't. They go in there and they do it, and they take the shots, that they feel, what I'm saying, is obtainable. And the head probably is the most dangerous if you're not going for the eyes or the nose or something like that. So I've seen a lot go inside there, and they're working the body. They break the body down.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a method that does work. And I just want to add this in, right? Everybody was frowning on bare knuckle, right? And Goldie, your combat sports, veteran, when you look at an elbow from an MMA fighter, that's a powerful tool.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at getting clinched and with that knee being brought to that face, that's powerful. A leg kick to the head, that's powerful. All three of those deliver a more devastating blow than a punch, right? And
No
that's
question.
one of my arguments. It was like, yo, bare knuckle, bare foot, bare knee, bare elbow. Yo, hit me with a bare knuckle, man. I don't want to get caught. But we see what Johnny Bones do to them guys when he gets them down, and that's.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, I know you know the history of the UFC, and you're a combat guy, and you have been for many years. I'll tell you about a story Kenny Florian told me a number of years ago when he fought Sean Shirk. Kenny sliced him with an elbow, because those elbows, that's like a little knife, man. But boom, and it'll open you up. Well, Kenny was on the bottom because Sean was a great wrestler, and he was able to take Kenny down. Kenny's a great jiu-jitsu practitioner. So he wasn't finished. The fight went the distance. But Kenny elbowed him and cut Sean. Kenny said there was so much blood in his mouth and it tasted like iron for the next day. And I was like, oh, Kenny, I don't need to know that. I don't need to know that. But that's the case, and that's what Dada's talking about. Now, that said, Sean Shirk probably took 6 stitches after that. It was nasty at the time, and it was the look to those who were uneducated was not pretty. It looked like, for those who were not educated, that we were still in that Senator McCain human cockfighting era where we were well past it. It's just those elbows are vicious. A knee, especially to the head, like Dada talked about, you got double force because you got the clinch in Muay Thai and you're bringing the knee. So you're making the impact meet in the middle. So it's double the impact. And I don't care what anybody says. I could just lay my shin on your IT band, and you probably know this, Matt, because you competed. I can just lay my shin with a little bit of force on your IT band, and you'll be limping for the next 3 days. Think about the kicks that are really thrown inside, not just pure Muay Thai, but MMA. Those can do damage as well. So there is a definite point to what Dada brought, definitely a great question that you asked, Matt. And also the hands are a factor. Paulie Malignaggi had one bare knuckle fight. It was against Artem Lobov. Now, Paulie's hands were already pretty beat up from his professional boxing career, his gloved career. Paulie broke his hand in the first round of that fight with Artem. He basically fought him one-handed. And Paulie can't get back in there. I mean, he has the skills. Guy's a 2-time world champion. But Paulie kind of can't get back in there because his hands are so beat up from all those years of competition that he threw one punch, it hit Artem in the wrong place, and he fought with one hand. Everybody wants to give Artem love, and I like Artem Lobov. Everybody wants to give Artem love and say, oh, well, Conor won that argument, that feud, because Artem beat Paulie in bare-knuckle. No, Paulie's prior past beat Paulie in bare-knuckle because he threw a punch, his hand broke, and he couldn't throw a punch with that hand the rest of the fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember watching that. And there's another big plus to this that is a criticism leveled now against MMA, probably because it's come so technical. A lot of it is wrestling on the ground, which a lot of people don't really understand. And you could argue can become boring and it can come to a decision in the end or end in a submission. But 90% of people watching probably don't really know the technicalities of what's going on. Whereas I've been on a bit of a binge on the BYB Extreme YouTube, and these fights get finished almost every time. There's not often these go to the judges, is it?
No, not at all. And Dada, I know you'll agree, when it does, you've had a hell of a war, Matt. You have had a hell of a war if it does go the fiver in a championship 7-round fight. I mean, wow. Wow. I mean, Bovar Kanikov, I mean, his fight recently. You look at the women's championship fights that we've had, Christine Stanley and her opponent, Patty Juarez and Monica Medina. I just saw an interview with Randine Ekholm from her fight the other night in Miramar, and both her eyes are just like, they're the raccoon eyes. I'm like, oh, she's such a pretty girl. And right now, you could tell she got in a fight. And it was a close decision. But you would look at her and go, man, she lost badly. So yeah, it is. And I like saying it's all over. And I get that chance more often. And as educated as the world is, and as beautiful at art and respected at art as wrestling is. And if I walk in there against Dada, I'm going to try to take him down. I'm not going to have any luck personally, but I'm not going to stand and trade without a 5,000. That's stupid. Everybody tried to take Chuck Liddell down back in the day. Chuck Sprawl and Brawl made you stand, knocked you out.
Yeah.
People, as much as they train jiu-jitsu, as much as it's gained its acceptance in this world, 80% of the live crowd still boos or sighs when a fight goes to the ground because they want to see people stand and strike and they want to see a knockout. Yeah. So it's a respect and it's a respectable time in a fight. People need to understand that these guys train hard and there's a strategy to ground fighting and there's a strategy to when you take your opponent down or you fake that shot to get your opponent drop his hands and then come over the top. But much to your point, Matt, people still boo about 30 seconds in and they want him to stand back up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's understandable. You know, I understand why you kind of average person watching just wants that stand-up action. It makes perfect sense. And that's for me why this BYB Extreme makes perfect sense, because you get that. And also, Dada, you have the Trigon ring, I believe you call it, yeah? Which is another factor, which means we get a lot of action.
100%. You know, we were just speaking about, you know, the going to the ground. So we have the Trigon ring and the Trigon cage. And we did a little bit of MMA, right? In Wyoming, in Cheyenne. You know, this is back in 2019. And listen, the crowd on their feet, you know, people getting knocked out. That thing has a 98%, you know, KO, TKO finish rate. When those guys went to the ground, you know, it was a different energy in the building. Totally different energy in the building. And I think we used that cage a couple more times. And then we went to the Mighty Trigon and ring. And we call it the Mighty Trigon because there's nothing else out there like that. You can't bring your bicycle inside the Mighty Trigon. You can't. You can bring it into the boxing ring. You can bring it into, because we've seen individuals, when that pressure gets on them, they'll run if you give them opportunity. You know, when you talk about, you know, being strategic, these are shapes. They've been around since the beginning of, you know, since ever. You have the rectangle, you have the circle, you have the square, you know, and you have the triangle, right? But you've never heard, you know, of a trigon. So you have the Nanagon, you have the Helplagon, you have the Pentagon, you have the Octagon. You've never had a Trigon. So we took it from here and put it right here. So it has a place, in combat sports and in history. And it's designed to promote confrontation.
Yeah.
It's going to test a few things: your ring IQ, your footwork, and a lot of other. It's the most dominant form for combat fighting on the planet.
Smallest combat surface out there overall, Matt. And the Trigon also does a very, very special thing for all of us who are so proud to represent BYB Extreme. It separates us from the rest. Because if you watch, there's other bare knuckle out there, which means there's other great athletes competing in bare knuckle. In the UK, our partners at BKB do a wonderful job. And I mean, they love a fight. In the UK, there's one outside the pub every hour. So they don't mind seeing another fight, right? But if you're just flipping the channels and you see that triangle and you see the mighty Trigon, you know it's BYB Extreme. And so not only is it great for the action inside, but it's also very special for us as a brand so that we can differentiate ourselves from the other organizations in the world. And I've always said, you don't use a cotton swab, you use a Q-tip. And you don't use tissue paper, you use Kleenex. So a lot of people would always say, oh, he fights UFC. No, he doesn't fight UFC. He fights MMA in the UFC. But the UFC has gained that Kleenex, Q-tip mantra. And that's what we want to do with the Trigon. We want to become the Q-tip. We want to become the Kleenex. We want to become the one that people visualize when they talk about bare knuckle boxing.
So just a bit about the sport itself. You have weight divisions as in boxing and MMA?
Absolutely. In fact, we go with boxing weight divisions. We have a boxing format with our weight divisions. Now, as Dada will tell you, we have certain fights that are contracted at a certain weight, but it's within a weight division and it's at a weight in which both opponents have chosen, and both opponents are going to, if they need to cut, they're going to cut for, they're going to come in and make that weight and compete. One guy might be taller and have longer arms, but they're going to compete at the same weight. So absolutely, we go with the boxing mantra weight classes. Our Hall of Fame matchmaker Mel Valenzuela he's a rock star, plain and simple. And Mel's been around the game for a long, long time. Boxing, MMA, now bare knuckle. He was with Kombache Global for many, many years doing their matchmaking. And Mel definitely does his homework when he brings in our athletes to be in that same weight class. And we see fighters switch weight class, but we see that in the UFC. We see that in MMA as well. If I always used to tease with my very, very, very good friend who I miss every single day, Anthony Rumble Johnson. The dude, Anthony
Rumble.
Yeah, it always was, right, Dada? And oh man, you know how emotional I was losing AJ. But I always said, AJ, you never really fought at 170. You fought at 176, 182, and he would just get that $1 million smile on his face. Because that guy trying to make 170 back in the day was crazy. So yeah, we do have weight classes, we do have rules, and we do have excellent referees that are in there, and great doctors that will stop a fight if a fight needs to be stopped.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of rounds and the length of each round, how is it?
Dada, I'll give that one to you, brother.
Okay, for the females, we have 2-minute rounds. So we would have 5 2-minute rounds. And for the males, we have 5 3-minute rounds, which I believe we have the longest rounds out of any bare knuckle organization. And if it's a title fight, then it goes from 5 3-minute rounds to 7 3-minute rounds, which that extra minute makes a difference. As Goldie, we was out there in South Carolina, as we've seen with the Sam Liera, fight, wow. We can only, assume how it would have went if Smash had 2 more rounds, which I can't wait to see those guys run that back.
Yeah.
That was something else. They're both great human beings as well. But we have the threes, and that does make a difference because other organizations, including BKB, they have the 2-minute rounds. Mm-hmm. And the 3-minute round is that extra minute's a long time. Anybody who's an amateur and has never really been in a fight or whatever, but never really trained with their hands, go all out on the bag for 30 seconds and go all out on the bag for 20 seconds. You're going to wish the rounds were 30 seconds long, not 3 minutes long.
And who have you had from other sports that fans might know of that have already competed from mixed martial arts or from boxing?
Well, I mean, when you go and you look at some of the UK guys we've had, we Barry Jones, who competed for us, one of the most respected bare-knuckle and glove boxers in the UK. So the UK guys that have fought and competed in our partnership with BKB are tremendous. You have a guy like Desmond Green, who is one of our champions, who was a high-level and very successful mixed martial artist with the Ultimate Fighting Championship for a very long time. You have Sam Liera, who's been in combat sports for 3 decades. And then you have a guy like Carlos Guerra, who's also a former world Muay Thai champion. And he's done MMA. And of course, he comes into BYB and fights bare knuckle. Some other organizations out there will bring in names, if you will, and put the name ahead of the skill set and ahead of the potential confrontation that you're going to deliver to those at home. We are creating our own base of fighters that will become household names, Matt. Yeah, we have some household names that have battled for us. I have 10 guys I've called already easily off the top of my head. Toby Misek called his fights in Bellator. I mean, we have competitors where I've called their fights in MMA. YL Watson, who's with Antonio McKee, AJ McKee at the Body Shop out on the West Coast, Team Body Shop, one of the greatest gyms ever. And I'm really old because Dada, I called Antonio and his son's fights. I called Kimbo and Baby Slice. I guess that means I've been around a long time, which I'm blessed to be. But we go with those who are going to put on a show. But of course, we have guys and women that are well known around for their accomplishments in other sports as well.
Well, logically, when you look at this, you would think that people that have come from boxing to bare knuckle boxing would easily transfer their skills. But has it actually worked out like that? Or is maybe guys that have done Muay Thai or MMA? Because although it's similar, I'm sure there's still different skill sets as well to bare knuckle boxing as opposed to regular boxing as we know it.
You've done it all, Dada. I mean, share your thoughts on that one. And I know that Dada 5000 is going to tell you about the clinch right now, Matt, because it makes a world of difference.
You know, when things go, you know, when you look at it, these different athletes that's coming from different, sporting environments, yeah, you would think, that their prior skill set would definitely be a factor. But you have to factor in, they're fighting inside of the mighty Trigon, which poses its own, level of difficulties, so they don't get a chance to go out there and exert it because most of them they will, but it makes it, a seesaw battle. Whoever, be in the position to get off, first, because a lot of individuals, they look at it and when they look at it on TV, but when they see it in person, it's like, wow, that thing is tight. So you don't have the room to get comfy and to get warmed up like that. So a lot of these fights, you get to it right off the bat. And then keep one thing in mind, that we start really, really close. Like a good spring off 1-2, it can end it, So there's so many different interesting variables that makes BYB Extreme such a high octane, entertaining sport, So it's like a toss up, it could be anybody fight. If someone comes inside there with a good strategy and a good point of execution, off go, it could be a short night at the office, regardless of the skill set or who is better or more suitable, for us to opinionate on who would win. That's what makes it so awesome. to be in attendance and see it live.
And here's a great one to really to accentuate your point, Matt. Patty Juarez is one of our champions. Her big sister, known as Barbie Juarez, is basically the Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. of women's boxing in Mexico. She's a folk hero there. She is one of the most accomplished Mexican female boxers of all time. Little sister Lourdes also holds a title present day. So the Suarez sisters all grew up with boxing. And it's funny because their brothers were soccer players, or football. It's soccer. I mean, I'm here in Phoenix and my Bengals aren't in the Super Bowl, so I don't care what happens. Well, I do care what happens Sunday. And you know the Eagles soar. I'll just leave it at that. But when you look at Patty Juarez coming in, she earned her title with her hands with all that boxing training, Matt, but in a little different way with BYB. But it's no less impressive than what Barbie has done, nor what younger sister Lourdes has done. So when you have Barbie Juarez's sister come in, you have one of our broadcast partners, Claudia Trejos, who has known all three of those sisters since they were hitting pads at 8 years old. So there's a huge name that maybe people didn't know because it's not Paige Van Zandt. But I love Paige Van Zandt, and I love Austin Vanderford, her husband. Patty Juarez is a better bare-knuckle competitor than Paige is. And Paige would admit that. I give Paige a lot of credit. I knew you do too, Dada. She put in the time. But you're trying to take someone from a different place and turn them into a pure striker, where we look for striker-first athletes. That's you can talk about Anderson Silva boxing. Anderson Silva says he's going to be good in professional boxing because he's a Muay Thai practitioner, then jiu-jitsu. Don't get on Ben Askren because he's not a good fighter or a good striker, because none of us on this call right now, none of us represented the United States of America at the Olympic Games on the U.S. Olympic wrestling team. Ben Askren did. But you take a Ben Askren, you try to make him something that he really isn't, that's not going to translate into the entertainment value that we want to bring. So we have the names. We also have the DNA within those names that can bring the best show to our fans and the highest level of competition inside the Trigon.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you talk about the female fighters. What's your kind of demographic of audience? Because I'm guessing if you've got the male and the female fighters, you therefore are attracting a crowd of males and females. But probably people are assuming, oh, it's just men there watching. But I'm guessing it's not, right?
No, not at all. And Dada, I know you've witnessed this. So I would be in Vegas doing a UFC, and the beautiful women would walk in with their short little skirts on and not a top that was too small for them, but maybe small enough for some people to admire. And I'm not saying that was my point of view. I'm making a point here. And you'd think, oh, this is going to be gross. About 2 seconds in, I would see that same person behind me as Joe and I were broadcast. And the dude all of a sudden is like, whoa, who am I dating? Who am I married to? And women in this culture, God created women to give birth, because us men, we couldn't handle it. If you want to talk about some of the best warriors out there, it's the women. But trust me, they can be all dollied up in the crowd, but once fists started to fly, it's in their inner soul. I mean, they give birth. They give us children, the next generation. They love fighting. No question about it.
I've seen this so many times inside the backyard. You're 100% correct. As a song says, from ages from 1 to 92, a December Christmas type carol, right? We had those type of individuals from all walks of life, different ages, and you see them back there, and they're screaming so loud, and they're so in tune, and they're doing this, and one of them on several occasions, she's a fight fan, RIP, she passed away, and she, I believe she was like about 70 something. She would go up to a few of them, she was like, you had him, why did you do this? And out of respect, they're like, hey, I'm gonna follow up on that the next time. But of course, this Goldie, it's easier to say, why did you do this? Why didn't you do that, from the
Yeah.
outside? But just to, the speak on, what we were just talking about. Yeah, the ages, listen, they range from small to big. Once those fights start, they all get engaged and they all show their emotions. And you see them back there making the facial expressions and they
Oh
get
yeah.
into it.
And there's
They
nothing.
definitely do. And I was just asked, Matt, what I was on a podcast last night, and I was asked by the great Don McGuire, what are the greatest fights that I have had, that I've witnessed and called in bare knuckle? And I'm trying to think right off the top of my head. And two that came to my mind immediately were Patty Juarez and Christine Stanley, and Patty Juarez and Monica Medina. They're two of the top 5 that I've seen in the Trigon, and now I've called 100+ fights in the Trigon. And they are definitely in anybody's top 5. They might be 1 and 2, the way that those women went to war. So yeah. My uncle was funny. Years ago, I was doing a UFC in Tampa, and my uncle lives in Tampa, Matt. And the main event was pretty high profile. The co-main event were 2 women competing. And I looked for my uncle after the show. He said, hey, nephew, I left after the women fought. I came to watch the women fight. And I'll never forget that with my Uncle Don. He came to watch the women fight, and fight they did.
There you go. And talking about this going forward, now, as we know, this is expanding next month into Dubai, which is huge news for the sport. It's a huge event in Dubai. Is this the plan now, to roll this out across the globe?
100%.
No question.
100%. It's no city, state that's safe from BYB, bringing the mighty Trigon, to your neck of the woods. This is the first, event, and correct me if I'm wrong, Goldie, in Dubai, and we're gonna bring the house down. And the best feeling is when you hear the people saying, "Wow, when is the next one? When is the next one?"
Mm-hmm. And
it's very special. Going to London was special. I know we'll be in Ireland. I know we'll be all over the place, because it's in our DNA as human beings that if Tom Brady, and he did go to that school up north, but I still have to give him that he's the GOAT. If Tom Brady's throwing a football on one corner, Tiger Woods is ripping 400-yard drives on the next corner, MJ, the great Michael Jeffrey Jordan's burying threes on the third corner, and on the fourth corner, there's a fight. Every single person standing in that block is going to run over and watch the fight, plain and simple. It's in our DNA.
Especially when it's bare knuckle, right? That's the thing.
You got that right. You got, like Dada said, when it's fights like that, it is bare knuckle. Nobody's going to wrap their hands before they fight after school.
100%.
Like, I remember years back in the clubs in London, you talked about lots of fights. And Dorman used to come with wrapped hands when it was a big fight. They'd take their time, wrap the hands, and then go out there.
Yeah. I remember we were, I think we were in Birmingham or Manchester, and we're at a pub, and it's the night before. And next thing I know, these 2 women in very short skirts, we look outside the window, and Dada, they would have been worthy of being in your backyard, brother. They were throwing down. And I'm like, this is a precursor to tomorrow. And then we also kind of joked, like, is this going to be the best fight of the weekend? Because it was a pretty good go, Matt. And they just let it all go. Those pretty tops were being torn off, and they were throwing hammers, man. It was fun. It was fun. It was fun, and it was funny. But it is, much to your point, it's something that you see a lot. And we've given a lot of athletes an outlet. Martial arts has saved a lot of lives. And bare knuckle boxing is now another platform and another place where these athletes can take out the bad things in their past and put their focus in their mind into competing in a sanctioned event, in which instead of fighting in the street for free, you can fight in the Trigon and make some money. But it's the training and the discipline that takes you off the streets and saves your life. And there's not one fight, Dada, that I don't think we've been in a fighter meeting that 1 or 2 of the athletes have not said, fighting martial arts changed and saved my life. If I weren't in martial arts, I would be dead today, in prison or dead. Or you have the comment, I was fighting all the time growing up. I might as well get paid for it now.
100%. And just to add in on something that you had stated earlier, when you look at these combat sports, across the globe and these athletes, you suffer various, injuries in MMA. It could be, ankles, knees, what have you. I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you look at bare knuckle, it adds, 4 or 5, maybe more years onto a fighter's, career. You don't have to worry about getting shot in on that bum leg anymore, or various things. You can stand on your 2 feet and really, perfect your hand game. You probably extended, your fighting career. So you're probably washed in MMA, right? But you come over to bare knuckle, and you have a legitimate chance at having a strong run at a title.
Yeah. And it's the training too. Much to Dada's point, Matt, it's the training of these athletes that beat them down too, because you got to spend hours in your jiu-jitsu and your grappling and your submission game. You got to spend hours working takedowns and takedown defense. You spend hours on your Muay Thai, checking kicks, throwing kicks, blocking kicks, keeping that elbow tight, keeping that hand high, answer the phone. And then you also have the pure striking part of it, which can be the hands of Nate Diaz in a more boxing-centric form. Desmond Green is a guy who, again, was as successful as anyone we've had, and we have as a champion right now in BYB, who said, and I quote, man, it's tough, it's dangerous, and it is a challenge, but there are a lot less things to worry about than there were in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because the face of it, I guess, purely because of the blood, it looks worse, but in actual fact, clearly, it's a lot safer over a lot of different areas, which is interesting.
I haven't seen one worse than Sean Shirk and Kenny Florian, and I haven't seen a cut worse than Marvin, the Beastman Eastman from Vitor Belfort, yet in the Trigon. So, it can get a little gory, if you want to use that word. But when your adrenaline's pumping 1,000,000 miles an hour and you get a head wound, it's going to be nasty visually. But like I said, it's not permanently damaging, and it's something that will be stitched up immediately after the fight, and you'll find that fighter enjoying either the laurels of victory or even having a beer with a guy in which defeated him, because they're martial artists and they respect each other, because that's what martial arts teaches.
Yeah. And at the moment, Dada, you have your champions in the weight divisions. And how does it work? Who becomes the #1 contender? Is there a system evolved like that? Or at the moment, are you just picking fights based on what you've seen elsewhere? Or how does that work?
It is a system in place. And it's also based upon, the wins and the losses, right? So when you say, hey, listen, this is the #1 contender, for the title because he or she has won 3 in a row. And the consistency, not with just, them winning, but were they dominant in that victory, and styles make fights. So a lot of these athletes, they're closely watched because, we have box, right? And all of these fights are no different than MMA fights, boxing matches. They're all underneath the same box, right? You could actually pull up individuals' records. So, the wins and the losses. So when you get that call, that you have a shot at the title, it's not because, we feel that you're good enough. No, you've earned it. You've earned it. So everything is a part of a ranking system, and BYB Extreme, we're legitimate. When we say, hey, listen, this is the world title, it's actually looked at as such, and it's something for these athletes to feel proud about. And when they're out and about, they have that strap over their shoulder, it means something, like you have accomplished something in your life significantly, because every time you go out there, you're not guaranteed to walk out of that mighty Trigon or the boxing ring, or the octagon, how you go in, and that's what separates a lot of athletes, and yeah, these girls, they earned those shots, and a lot of them, some of them, they can fight, and a few of them, they can talk. So when you can fight and you can talk, that makes for excitement. And once the fans start saying, hey, I want to see him versus him, you got something there.
Yeah.
Nothing like a good storyline.
Oh, yeah.
Some fans want someone to win or someone to lose. It's all good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Somebody's got to wear the black hat.
Yeah. Well, guys, I absolutely love what you're doing here. And it's making me think, talking about this. I grew up in a place called Cornwall, which is the very south of England. And in Cornwall, we're very proud for having the first ever English boxing champion, Bob Fitzsimmons. On the wall in nearly every pub in England, you can find a picture of Bob with the pose like that. No gloves or anything.
Yeah.
And it's everything you've been saying is
that this pose? Is that this pose?
This pose, yeah. And it's
yeah. I was by one of those pubs last time we were in London. Yeah. I saw exactly who you're talking about.
This is really bringing me back to this, which, as you say, this is really where it started. This is the most honest form of combat sport. So it's just brilliant to see it growing like this. So I'm just chuffed that you guys are bringing this to the level that you already have, and the sky is the limit, I'm sure, with the team that you've got. So just, I think, on behalf of everyone, we thank you guys for all the work that you've put in so far, and long may it continue. And we've got on March the 18th, you come to Dubai, right?
Yeah. If I could leave tomorrow, I'd be there already.
Really quick before we segue into the Dubai, BYB Extreme is South Florida's oldest combat sports promotion company, right? And again, this stuff, it's been around longer than all of us have been alive. And when you look at it, and what it represents, and what it stands for, you have to say to yourself, wow, man, we have extended careers, we have created opportunities, we have done so many awesome things. And to be in a position to go overseas, and bring the history, bring the tradition, to a country, such as the UK, I mean, words can't, describe, but Goldie, you was going to say something.
No, I just, the same as you're saying, and at March 18th, you talked about champions and guys who've earned a belt. DJ Linderman is our heavyweight champion right now, and he's on the card in the main event of the evening against Quentin Domingo from the UK. He's a BKB brawler. He's a BKB fighter, and it's for the Police Gazette belt. And I'm sure it's for the heavyweight title as well. I have to confirm with Father Mel, as I call him, Mel Valenzuela, but that's the main event. And it's 7 3-minute rounds, which makes it a championship fight. And so, yeah, as we expand to be the first sanctioned bare-knuckle competition in Dubai, trust me, Dada and myself and our owner, Mike Vasquez and Mel, we all went to the NHL All-Star game on Saturday, the night after our show in Miramar about a week ago, Matt, and we couldn't stop talking about we're headed to Dubai. Like, look how far we've come. The sport is decades and decades and centuries old. Dada's backyard is legendary and always will be. They have come together, meshed beautifully, and now we're going to Dubai because Dubai wants us to come. I mean, what else can we say right now other than Shaquille O'Neal was also in attendance the other night? And when I asked him, Jack Diesel, do you want to do some commentary with us? He said, absolutely. And that's just an example of all the hard work that's been put in. And especially by Dada, my friend, my personal bodyguard, we always joke, which he is. He wouldn't let anybody pick on me. I know you wouldn't, big brother.
Absolutely not.
But look how far we've come. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started. But the sacrifices, Dada, you made and Mike have made since day one. Matt, I mean, this started from 2 great things coming together, but South Florida regional, if you will, much like Strikeforce back in the day, was a Bay Area promotion that Scott Coker had that grew magnificently and grew so much that the UFC saw him as competition. So the UFC bought him so they could get Daniel Cormier and Dan Henderson and Quentin Rampage Jackson and some of the guys that Scott Coker had under contract to fight in the octagon. That's where we are right now. We're really beginning to kick that rise into meteoric range and meteoric speed.
And just to add to that, Goldie, you know, when you look at you know, bare knuckle fighting, this stuff been going on all over the world, right?
Yeah.
When it came to the United States, you know, RIP, you know, to Kimbo, when he first fought that dude and messed the guy's eye up, nobody on the planet was hotter than him doing bare knuckle. And we're from the same place. I could have go up the street, go up past the sidewalk and look to the right, and I could see the complexes that he was staying in called Pine Crest. And he was hot. And I was telling him, I'm like, yo, listen, you know, and I came up right behind him, but I put a twist on it. Instead of me putting the burden on my shoulder doing all the fighting, I created a platform that allowed other individuals to be the next Kimbo, regardless if you're Latin American, Hispanic, Haitian, Russian, you could be British, whatever. We're giving you an opportunity to come out here, you know what I'm saying, and to, you know, to perform. No other bare knuckle promotion, you know, out there can say that they have not been, you know, entertained. They've taken pages from what we were doing in the backyard. We put it out there with Dogfight on Netflix and all of the highly publicized programs that we did with ESPN, Rolling Stones, Nat Geo, so forth like that. Their minds, you know, were these things spawned a thought, you know, and now you have so many people wanting to do it. But if they want to be honest, they'll tell you, I was inspired by those guys down there in Miami. You know,
sure.
They inspired me to do this. So we are the first, we are the oldest, and we are the best. And I say this often, creative minds never take a day off. That's why we didn't come with the traditional boxing ring or the octagon, because it was already done, you know? So that's what you get when you talk about BYB Extreme, a whole bunch of creative thinkers that are nothing like the rest, you know? And we have a strategy with a point of execution. And Goldie, I know I said a lot, but it's starting to become branded and cemented. When it comes to bare knuckle at BYB Extreme, we make the weekends and we light up the sky like it's the 4th of July, you know, and in the mighty Trigon, it has that 98%, you know, it's almost like the feds, 98% conviction rate, right? Every fight will be a finish. Nothing March 18th in Dubai is going to go the distance.
Love it. Okay, guys, I'm going to put the link where you can get the pay-per-view. You can go to coresports.world. I'll put the link in below this video so everyone can get it. Go to BYB Extreme YouTube channel. Go to all the fight archives on there, right? I've been absolutely obsessed with that the last few days. Started watching and couldn't stop watching. So everyone go there, subscribe, watch the fights there, and they can learn about it. And then get ready for the next big one in Dubai, yeah?
For sure. Exactly. And fans in Dubai, let me say this. When you see Dada 5000, he is a big, powerful man. You can't miss him with his red mohawk, but he is a gentle giant and a gentleman. And I'll say humbly, myself included, when I don't have the headset on, but fans, shake Dada's hand and get a picture, because it'll mean as much to Dada as it does to the great fans. So don't be intimidated by the fact that this man could probably crush you with one hand. He's got the biggest heart of anybody that I know. And so, Matt, fans embrace Dada's presence over in the UAE and in Dubai, because Dada is not only one of our founders, our creators, one of the masterminds, and one of the owners, he's also a freaking legend. So enjoy the fact in Dubai that you have a legend walking around at that event. And the time before in the street, if you ask Dada, can you get a picture? I guarantee you the answer will be yes. It would be my pleasure.
100%. Thank you for those kind words, Gold. I really appreciate it.
Always, my friend.
I grew up on a diet of Pride FC. Fedor was my absolute sporting hero. And I went from watching that non-stop, as I've always followed Fedor's career. And then I clearly remember, Dada, when some of your Backyard Brawl videos started coming out and thinking, whoa, what's this? And then, of course, UFC starting up, and Mike, obviously, you being the front man of that. So it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you guys, and knowing your history, seeing what you've done with this already. I'm certain this is going all the way, and I couldn't be more pleased. So, yeah, it's just been a great honor to have you guys on here today, and I want to thank you very much for that.
Thank you,
100%.
Matt.
And
Thank you.
in closing, I cracked up in the archives from 2007. We've done like close to about 26 events with fights ranging from, 6 to 8 bouts on a card, sometimes 10 in the backyard. So we have hundreds of fights. I'm sitting on at least 80 fights in the backyard, right? That no one has ever seen before.
Really?
So, I said, Throwback Thursday, every Thursday, I'm going to start to post, one of these fights, just to let the fight fans, far, near, and abroad, know how far we've come, how long we've been around. Nobody could tell you that they've been doing this since, introduced to it in 05, right? But really been putting on events in the backyard, since 07, and mastering how these events run. So now we're going to start releasing a lot of this, and I would never say, hey, listen, follow me. I will invite you guys on a journey, right? To follow the great Mike Goldberg, lead commentator for BYB Extreme, to invite you on a journey to follow the history and the evolution of the next phase of bare-knuckle at BYB Extreme, right? And myself, as you get educated on the tradition, on the beginning, and follow the trail to where we are right now. You'll be glad you did.
Amen. I can only add that what I would say would be virtually identical to what Dada just said in the message from BYB. And I'll give this in closing to you, Matt. Fedor Emelianenko did not get defeated by Ryan Bader Saturday on CBS. He was celebrated. Yes, Ryan won the fight. Ryan's a great friend of mine. Ryan's been great at heavyweight. Ryan wrestled at ASU, but now he's an incredible striker. What Scott Coker did to bring so many legends, it was a ride down memory lane, and I'm sure you watched it, Matt. It was such a touching moment. There was no better man than Big John to do that post-fight interview and remind Fedor, all right, Last Emperor, are you truly going to lay the gloves down? And he did. But that fight went how it did. And that's fine, because that was a celebration of the Last Emperor, one of the greatest competitors of all time, arguably the greatest heavyweight mixed martial artist of all time, certainly the most dominant at one point, and the most humble human being you will ever meet. And I will also tell you, much like Khabib's father, may he rest in peace, Fedor's building a legacy, because he got some guys on Team Fedor that are absolute monsters, and they're going to hold a lot of belts as well. But I know you enjoyed that moment with Fedor, because I did as well. And when he rubbed Chuck Liddell's stomach, that was kind of funny.
Okay, guys, great stuff. Mike, maybe you can sign us off, because this interview is all over. So I'll give you the last one.
Yes, it is. This incredible interview with Matt Rhodes, the world famous, world renowned, and a wonderful human being, Dada 5000. Mike Goldberg saying so long until next time, because this is all over. Just like that. Until next time, we see you inside the Trigon.